to keep our country safe.
Keeping the country safe.
Andy Burnham sounding similar to his predecessor and indeed talking about spending already planned by Keir Starmer. £8 billion to help replace the existing ageing class of nuclear submarines with 4 new dreadnoughts. The Prime Minister was in Barrow in Cumbria with his Defence Secretary trying to put a different spin on it.
What I've said as part of the Defence Investment Plan is that I want through it to give a commitment to all of our communities up and down the country. We do need to reindustrialise Britain and to make sure the kind of jobs we have here are available in all parts of the country. I said earlier this week that I want to change the education system so that it is balanced between technical qualifications and academic qualifications. It's not only about the university route, but it gives young people paths into places like this, and you're doing that.
As Andy Burnham's policy blitz goes on, so too do the questions about how he'll finance it all.
The question is not just where the vibes come from, and he's really good at the vibes, it's where does the money come from, because we need to know where he's going to get the money to pay for it. Look, I'm delighted that they're repeating the announcement that Keir Starmer made, because I think it's really important that each government renews that commitment. But the real question is whether John Healey is going to be able to answer John Healey's letter, because John Healey, as the Chancellor, now has to find the 3% that John Healey, as the Defence Secretary, said was absolutely necessary. Now, I welcome the commitment, but let's see how John answers John's letter.
In that resignation letter last month, John Healey told Keir Starmer, "You have been unable and the Treasury has been unwilling to commit the resources that the nation needs to defend the country at this time of rising threats." The central issue, the NATO target of spending 3.5% of GDP on defence by 2035. John Healey wanted Starmer to set an interim target to show the UK's commitment. So far, Andy Burnham's refused to commit to spend 3% of GDP on defence by 2030. Do you think he should?
That's what I have been asking for, that there should be 3% reached by 2030 in order that we can have a profiled increase to 2035. And by the way, if whether it's this government or somebody in the next parliament to deal with all of this, that backloading will mean that the British taxpayer will not get value for money. We will be hit as a nation by defence inflation. So we will get less bang for our buck. There is the distinct possibility of an attack by Russia on a fellow NATO nation by 2030. If we do not prepare now, we will be sorry in the long run.
While the spending question continues to be pushed downstream, others may view the UK's commitment to defence as being up in the air.
Well, earlier I spoke to Wes Streeting when he was visiting military sites in Barrow and Furness in his brand new role as Defence Secretary. And given the importance of drones in modern warfare, I began by asking him if the commitment to spend £8 billion on 4 more submarines was the right defence strategy.
Britain uses our nuclear deterrents every single day. It is the bedrock upon which our national security is built. And that's why it's crucial that we invest in the next generation of nuclear submarines. It's also reindustrialising Britain. It's creating new jobs and apprenticeships. In fact, our nuclear programme alone will generate 22,000 apprenticeships by 2035. We do need to build and rebuild our defence capability. In fact, just in the last week alone, we've seen big investments of £700 million going into the new combat fighter aircraft, the next generation of aircraft that will defend our country, more hundreds of millions of pounds, £400 million going into new spy drones. So we are pushing the frontier of defence innovation as this country always has.
John Healey, who's now the Chancellor of the Exchequer, when he had your job, he resigned from it because he thought the previous Prime Minister was either unable or unwilling to live up to the defence commitments that this country had made. I wonder if you find yourself in a position as Defence Secretary where you think the new Prime Minister is unable or unwilling to spend the money that you should be spending, whether you will also resign, as John Healey did.
I think in terms of Andy Burnham and John Healey as our new Prime Minister and our new Chancellor, we see both a willingness and an ability to invest in defence and to make sure the Defence Investment Plan is fully funded. I have total confidence in that.
He's not committed to 3% by 2030, is he? He's not. He is specifically not committing to 3% of GDP spent on defence by 2030.
Well, there's a good reason why neither the Prime Minister or the Chancellor have made that specific commitment right now, because it's for future budgets and spending reviews to set out what we will spend by when and how, not for me to do that outside of a budget or a...
It also gives you the ability to wriggle out of it if you want to spend the money elsewhere.
I think you've seen, both from what the Prime Minister has said, and I'm struck by the fact, actually, that within the Prime Minister's first 2 weeks in office, this is his second visit around defence. The first was hosting President Zelensky last week. This is his second visit up here in Barrow and Furness, looking at defence in industry investment and our nuclear deterrence. I think that tells you something about this Prime Minister's priorities.
You mentioned President Zelensky there. As you know, there were more overnight attacks by the Russians against Ukrainian cities. The Ukrainians are hitting Russian infrastructure targets in a way that they've never done so before. Are you worried that this war is escalating beyond a level where it's been in the last 4.5 years?
I think what we've seen in Ukraine overnight, and indeed in recent days and weeks in terms of Russian bombardment, is a sure sign that Putin is losing this war. We are seeing extraordinarily high Russian casualties. His people are paying a very heavy price for a war that none of us wanted, but Vladimir Putin chose.
One more quick one. Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of War, is a man who doesn't mince his words. He's called us basically losers, freeloaders. He's been incredibly rude about America's closest allies, including Britain. Have you spoken to him?
Yes, I have. In fact, I've had 2 conversations with Pete Hegseth since becoming Defence Secretary. Our teams talk regularly. It's hard to overstate the closeness of our relationship with the United States in relation.
Was he polite to you?
Yes, he was, and vice versa. And
he didn't call you a loser.
I think it's more important is what we do and how we work together.
Well, I hope your generous spirit is reciprocated. Wes Streeting, thank you very much.
Thank you.